Hello,
Hey,
everyone. Welcome to the Bread of Life channel. I am excited tonight. I believe this is the first time I've ever had a polytheist on the channel. So I'm really excited to hear corporate operator Bubble, otherwise known as Bubblegum Gun, describe and talk about his beliefs and what we've got in common and where we differ. So welcome, Bubble. How are you?
hey, I'm good. How's it going, everybody on the internet? Um, I guess I'll let you shoot with the first question. What are you curious
Well,
about?
I mean, the first thing is you mentioned that you're a polytheist, but you didn't say what religion you're part of or anything like that. So, do you want to tell us?
I'm actually not religious at all. What I mean by my version of polytheism is that I accept that there's a God and there's multiple gods. So I still believe in like one ultimate fundamental to everything. But I do believe there's like multiple creator gods. And and when I say polytheism, I'm not just settling down on Hinduism or other polytheistics like the Egyptians. I'm saying I'm accepting all of them. So when Richard Dawkins says like, "Oh, you're atheistic to all the gods except one," no, I'm like, no, I accept all the gods.
Wow. Okay. What's your reason for accepting all the gods?
I think it's self-revelatory by creation itself. For example, there's a big contention between us, the monotheists and the polytheists, and that really comes down to this thing called microevolution. I'm sure you heard of it, the term. Yeah.
Yes.
So a true creationist would like reject any sort of evolution whatsoever. So we would say no, like each dog breed, yeah, that was created. Like creationists like Ken Hovind would say, like the Chihuahua did come from the gray wolf, just as an evolutionist would say the dog, a Chihuahua came from a gray wolf. But the polytheists would reject such a claim. It's unfounded. There's no such event. They don't even have one single transitional between them. So we say yes, these dogs were created, and we would say they're probably created for the entertainment of children or to be man's best friend, because there is some sort of mutual, how would you say, uh, some sort of relationship between them, master and master and it's a dog, so you own the dog.
Okay. Wait. Now, you kind of jumped over to discussing evolution, but I want to get back to discussing why do you believe in all the gods?
Oh, because since yeah, sorry, I sorry that was a bit of the context. Since each animal was indeed created individually, that rules out any monotheistic perspective. Christianity, Islam, Hebrewism. I'm not sure if there's like Zoroastrianism, but I think we can all discount Zoroastrianism because it was literally just a made up religion. At least you can claim that Jesus did exist.
Okay. Now, so you believe that every dog breed was created, and how does that like mean in every animal? So how does that
Well,
mean that every god exists?
well, now you take that same logic and apply it to human races. So there is no story that we all came from Adam and Eve and we're like all brothers and sisters. No, that's your race and this is that race, and there was a God to that race and there was a God for that race. So like if you tell me that the I don't know what was the Japanese god, Amaterasu, I believe that's the Japanese creator
Okay.
god. So yeah, I would say like yeah, they were created by Amaterasu. If that's the creator god, I'm not too.
Okay. So you believe that every like religion that claims that their god is creator of their people, that is true.
Yeah, so yeah, I believe what they've written down.
Okay. Why do you believe it?
Well, since there is basically no microevolution, you kind of have to believe it. since this does debunk any monotheistic narrative, including the biblical one. Uh, well, it doesn't necessarily follow, but it does debunk any biblical narrative. And what does that fall back on? Well, you have to just believe what they said. Like nobody's gonna spend millennium building these pyramids just for the funsies. Clearly, there's like some authority that is imposing. They're like, you're gonna build this.
Okay. I guess I'm still not quite following now. I mean, what if the authority was just a human being that was telling them to do this?
What's the other thing? This is like the time of gods, and the during these time of the gods were the kings, so they weren't humans weren't like the authority. Humans weren't the kings. It is only later, after like the death of the gods, that you see the like humans taking, their positions of power.
Okay, so do you believe that some of the gods died?
I certainly think some of them can be killed. I mean, I think their bodies can be killed. I don't know about spiritually. Can they be spiritually annihilated? I don't know about that, but I don't put that out of the table yet.
So do you think some of the gods had physical bodies?
Yeah, because what is life? But like, it's just a spirit inhabiting a body. Because your brain is just a radio. It doesn't give. You're not a robot, and your brain is a CPU. There's no storage system that has the computations to tell you how to move. It's just a complicated radio that's tuning into some sort of a spirit signal, and that's your consciousness.
Do you think the gods were created, or did they create themselves?
Well, I don't think the ultimate was created, but I do think they're. I wouldn't say they created. I mean, I would say they were born. So I do think they're. You need priest up some things before you can have another thing. For example, I think my favorite question to ask the monotheist is like, did God create the universe using order? Because that's revelatory of the ultimate. Because
Okay, so you're saying like if God used order, then order comes before God or something? Is that kind of the idea? Or
what's the thing? Because in polytheism, the ultimate God would be chaos. And so what that question forces the monotheists is to admit that yes, there is order in the universe, obviously, but what does order presuppose? Presupposes chaos. And so this stumps the monotheists because now they're admitting another god in this. I think that's the thing with monotheists. They're afraid of other people's faith because there's a higher, stronger entity that they didn't know about, and now they're afraid there's a bigger dog in the game.
okay, so now this is really interesting. What do you think the definition of a god is? Like, are we gods?
No.
Okay, what's the difference between us and a god?
Well, I would say God is a supernatural entity worthy of worship.
Mm-hmm.
So like a spirit, or like, because you don't have to be a creator to be a god. You just have to be a powerful entity, a fundamental entity. So there's you have your primordial gods, and then you have your demigods.
Okay, what's the difference between those?
Well, a primordial god, like that of chaos, it's not optional, because the primordial will be the absolute necessary for even your existence. Whereas akin to like a god of wine, that's not necessary.
Okay, so maybe the god of wine would be a demigod?
Yeah.
Okay. So do you have any experience with the gods?
I have experience with the supernatural, but not with the gods. I don't dwell in the supernatural. Like I
Okay,
don't
what do
touch
you
it.
mean you have experience with the supernatural, but you don't dwell in the supernatural?
Well, like as a kid, I had experience with like a supernatural entity. It was basically I just woken up and seen this hooded figure walking across the room. So I thought that would maybe just a family member. Family member. This entity turns around. It's completely dark, so I can't look at its face. Lifts up its finger and flicks it at me, and I go back to sleep. So that's like, well, if that exists, well, you have to presuppose God.
Okay, so do you think that figure, what kind of being was that figure?
I'm guessing it was some sort of wraith or grim reaper.
Okay, so there's the gods, and then did the gods create um, those other types of beings?
Well, I would say yes, because I don't think all gods are necessarily have to be good, or deities have to be, benevolent. Because sorry, people like to separate, like the divine doesn't dwell in politics. Like no, everything is political. So even the divine will dwell in politics. So there's clear conflict, because I have heard many stories of like people interacting with these demons, and they seem to have like territorial conflicts. Like this is my territory. I'm not sure if you ever heard of Zozo.
No.
Okay, Zozo is like people who use the Ouija board will often come upon this demon called Zozo, but it doesn't seem to be like it itself is a demon, but it's the name of a gang of demons.
Wow, okay. And this gang of demons like travels around together or what? Like
Well, there
they
there's
like
power. Well, there's power in numbers, and
yeah.
ultimately, yeah, and ultimately everything's a battlefield. Like the bowling field, the golf ball course, in the air, on land, in the sea, and even in heaven and hell, they're all simply just battlefields.
Okay, I want to explore that more. Let's say hi to some people in the chat though. Hi BS. BS Lewis is here. Titan Uranus, great. Fake human, cool. KCA Randy, wow. Satan is here. Nitty's here. Good to see you guys. Jake, awesome. Peter, good to see you. Tape Deck is here.
I see my number
Seamus,
one fan is here,
Sunflower.
Titan.
Who's your number one fan?
Titan Uranus. He's my
Oh,
number one
okay.
fan.
Cool. Now, this is interesting because Tape Deck says, I wonder if she compares this to how atheists look at her beliefs. I don't know how atheists look at my beliefs, but I definitely find Bubbles' perspective more reasonable than atheism. That is for sure. So I think I could more easily get on board with his beliefs than most people who are in the chat right now. But so, okay, now where were we with the powers, the Ouija board demons, the power in numbers? I agree with this. Um so you said you didn't okay, you said that gods are beings that are worthy of worship, but you don't have any contact with them. But do you worship any gods?
No, I don't. I just accept them. Maybe perhaps in my mind I would think. For example, I sometimes like I think like, oh, thank Jesus that happened. But it might just be subconsciously, rather than
Mm-hmm.
like as a true devotee who goes out there and does their prayer.
Okay. So if you believe gods are worthy of worship, why don't you worship them?
Good question. I don't think I have a good reason why not. Well, I would say I don't have time for that. Me worshiping and praying to God isn't going to pay my bills, and I don't.
Okay.
And any God doesn't need my worship, just acknowledgement. that I am below him, and I accept that. And I think that's a lot of trouble with these atheists. They hate hierarchy. A lot of them are left leaning, in that sort of a and communist sector who hate hierarchy. And I think that's where a lot of their hatred for God comes from. They
Okay.
don't like it's your role. Well, like they feel offended by that in a way. Like for example, if say it's a woman's role, they would feel offended by that. As I would say, like for me, that would be understandable. Like yeah, it's the role of a woman to have the kids and you know feed them. I don't see a problem with that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, okay. So you're okay with the idea that there's a God over you. Now you said him um, rather than them or her. So is there a God that you think is in charge of you?
I would say maybe the because I would say the ultimate chaos. I just refer to him as a him. I don't know. It just innately like the ultimate. It's a
Okay.
him. Like, I
So
wouldn't
you
know
think
that.
there's one God overall?
Well, I do think there's one ultimate, but I don't
Yeah.
think the ultimate. I don't think the ultimate is the creator. So I think the ultimate is responsible for the other gods, and one of these other gods are the creator, the one who created the universe and has set this order. And now it could be possible that this single god has created all the races, or it could be that multiple gods within this, sub hierarchy of this main god has created all the human races. So that's where I stand because that's what the that's what history shows. So I do believe when people say like this god created my people, I'm gonna believe them.
Hmm. Okay. What God do you think is like the closest to you? Like what God is responsible for you?
Well, I would say that to like my race. So I would say maybe Aztec and because I'm a mix. I'm like European, Native, uh, South American mix. So Aztec god, and I don't know what's the god of Spain. I don't know which gods they had before.
Okay. Do you think like those gods what do they do? Do they do anything for you other than like creating your people? Do they like have interaction with you? Like
Oh, like if they're personal? Well, no, I
do they
because
continue to provide for you and things like that?
I no, I don't think so because you have to like, kind of worship them and invite them in and interact with them yourselves if you want that close relationship. But I don't seek any sort of close relationship with any god. So I'm not religious.
You are a very fascinating person. I have never heard anyone with this perspective before. So this is so cool. Okay, so um is there something that causes you to believe that these things are true? Like, I mean, is there a religious text or something that that you got these ideas from? Like, where did this idea come from?
Well, first off, it started with questioning evolution, and then I felt that the Christians weren't going far enough because they were conceding this microevolution, and then when I finally looked into it, I found that was false. There wasn't any microevolution whatsoever, and so then from there, I I started looking for people accounts of their gods and how they how people other religions, other nations, other people interact with the gods. And yes, for example, the Muslims when they pray to their god, they do miracles do happen to them. Well, for example, if they exorcise a demon in the name of Allah, yeah, the demon is exorcised. But same thing with Christianity. If somebody exorcises a demon in the name of Jesus, it still happens. But then again, if you now expand that to other like religions like Hinduism, if somebody exercises a demon in the name of I don't know the Hindu god Shiva,
Mm-hmm.
I that's how it's pronounced. And same thing again. So if they can all exercise, that would presuppose their God is true.
Mm.
And it turns out some demons aren't reactive to some religions. So like, so if a demon is part of some sort of branch or some part of pantheon, they will only obey to like that hierarchy, but will ignore other religions.
Interesting. Okay. Now, you mentioned by email that you think we have the same general beliefs. What did you mean by that?
Well, I think we all accept that there is God, that it's not all materialistic, and there is a spirit. We have a spirit and a soul. I think that we are created, and at least I think we all disagree that there's at least macroevolution.
Mm.
And let's see what other things. I think one point of contention that I think Christians is like they don't believe in ghosts, but they would say they are demons. So if a loved one comes and visits like a living person, they would say that's a demon. And as a polytheist, like no, that's just your ancestor giving you a final goodbye.
Okay. Well, I think, some Christians might not believe in ghosts, but I think, you can support it from the Bible either way. I mean, you know, it's fine to hold a belief in ghosts from the Bible because there are examples of what seem to be ghosts in the Bible. So,
Yeah, it's strange because like you see that text and you would think like, okay, there is ghosts, but then you get Christians who absolutely reject it and deny it. But which I think is harmful because when a child comes to you, it says like, I saw the ghost of my grandpa, and then the Christian would just simply, no, you were just imagining things. That was just a dream. You're gaslighting your child and you're killing their faith. And so like now they're thinking, okay, I'm just crazy, and that
yeah.
sets them on the path towards atheism.
Oh my gosh, that now we found a point of agreement. I agree with you. I don't think we should tell kids like we should give them a naturalistic explanation when they ask about something they experienced like that. I totally agree with you on that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I will say like because this whole microevolution claim also has the same effect. Because like a novice just listening in, and when the Christian says, "Well, there's no macroevolution, but there's this microevolution," a novice person just hearing this as a passerby is just thinking, "Well, the Christian is admitting evolution; and it's just being dishonest." Well, it doesn't happen, but it kills their faith. And so
Well,
now you have pushed somebody away from finding a faith because there can be only one faith.
well, I mean, the only thing is, Bubble, that I think first, I don't I think I've been told by the creationists that I trust that I should not use the dichotomy microevolution versus macroevolution because actually the way that creationists often use that is not appropriate. Like it's just a misuse of the terms completely. So
Oh
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
definitely. So sorry, I was
Okay.
muted. Yeah, you should
Yep.
definitely abandon it.
Okay. But okay. Are you actually saying that we don't see any change within organisms at all?
I'm saying we see no breed go from one breed to another breed. For example, if you look at the evolutionary tree of like butterflies, you would expect there would be at least one transitional. Turns out there's zero transitionals between butterflies, and there's a lot of butterflies, but there's zero transitionals.
Wait a minute, but okay, look. Have you heard of a golden doodle? It's
Yeah, but
this
that's a
monstrosity of a dog, okay, that like everybody loves right now. Like it's like all over America, and it's like a golden retriever and a dude and a poodle. Okay,
yeah.
golden doodle. Now this is a new breed of dog, and it comes from two different breeds of dogs. It wasn't
Right.
created. It was. I mean, it was. You know, intentional. We intentionally got these dogs to you know.
Yeah, but that's a mixed dog. That's already starting was what is already created. For example, one question I had posed to the atheist, which they can never answer, because that's how I made the argument, is like, if evolution is true, provide to me one transitional between the gray wolf and the Dalmatian, and they can't. I think I debated Grayson and some other ones, other famous atheists, even a Doctor Thompson ran away from this question because it's unanswerable. And that's how I made it. There is no transitional. And they don't want to admit that. Because it blows them out of the water. They have to admit that they're just inferring these transitionals rather than actually being any transitionals.
Okay, maybe I don't understand what you're saying. Like, because to me, I don't know. I feel like this is,
Yeah, this is new.
I
This
want
is
to
new
give you
stuff.
the benefit of the doubt. Like, but I have to understand what you're saying, because it seems like you're making a really crazy claim here.
Well, it's crazy because like it sounds crazy because the truth sounds crazy, but like if you truly accept creationism, then they're all going to be created. So, example, in in evolution, you need transitionals. You understand that, right? And evolution works through
Yeah.
population. Yeah, evolution works through population. So it's not just one dog leading the whole charge of evolution. It's populations together through transitional populations. So if evolution wants to claim it's true, all they have to do is provide one transitional between point A and point B. Point A would be the gray wolf, point B would be the Dalmatian dog. And if it is in fact true that the gray wolf evolved to the Dalmatian, they should be able to provide one transitional, and they can't even do that. I'm not sure if I painted this clear picture for you. I think if you look up the evolutionary the evolutionary tree for dogs, it's just lines. There is nothing in between point A and point B. It's just lines connecting them. Because this
Okay.
really opens, this really pushes people who are like on that agnostic edge. Is it true? Is it not? And it clicks with them. It makes them realize, oh, why won't they answer this question? And the reason they can't answer it, because this is within the realm of DNA. It's in the realm of genetics, and they cannot lie. So, because if I post this question using like, what's the transition between the Dalmatian and like the first amoeba cell, they can say anything because I can't genetically test that, and I can't falsify it. So I bring down this argument down to this genetic circle, so they can't debate from outside of it, and they cannot lie. So it corners them.
Okay, that's an interesting approach, and maybe I'd like to hear more about that sometime. Now, you said you think we differ when it comes to morality. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I don't think morality exists like spiritually or objectively.
Okay.
And I think the Christian would say it does, which I think is a mistake. And then just them not truly understanding what evil is. Because like we still have evil in polytheism, but it's not like the monotheistic version of evil, which would say like this is objectively evil. So like in polytheism, evil will be defined that as that which goes against the natural order, the order set by the god or gods. And so I just say one for the sake of argument. So like, anything that goes in that against that order would be evil. For example, you killing babies, that goes against the natural order because you're stopping creation. You're getting in the way of creation. You're blaspheming against what is created. You're trying to destroy. And
Right.
yeah, and I think the Christian would just say like it is objectively evil to kill babies. And I think like, well, in a way you're right, but you're also wrong in the same way. So it's kind of fuzzy there, because then you have to admit, like, well, God did kill babies, so you kind of corner yourselves into saying God is now evil. So
Mm.
it presents itself a problem, and I say, like, well, and to that I say, well, God isn't subject to the order, so the order doesn't apply to him.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah, I think different Christians would have different accounts of morality. So there might be some that would think of it as you're describing. Others would say, whatever goes against God's order is evil, and then so I think but I'm curious about what you think about, like, so do different gods have different orders? Like, so basically, like, could killing babies be evil in one god's realm, and then the other god's realm could say, actually, in my order, that's exactly what we do?
Yeah, I mean, that's where the conflict arises. That
Okay.
is that is a good question, because yeah, you do have these gods who aren't acting like, how God should be, like, oh, you created us, but now you're, sacrificing us. And what kind of God does that? What kind of God needs sacrifice? So it just seems so counterintuitive to destroy that which you created. For example, the
So
assets.
would you say what those gods are doing is wrong?
Was it? I can't say that.
Okay.
Well, from the perspective of, like, if I appeal to, like, if I appeal to, like, the grand order,
Hmm.
rather than to, like, the order of a demigod, I, I would say it's evil. But if I'm appealing to the demigod, it's not evil,
I
because
see.
he is because they are above me, but the other god is above them.
Okay. Now, you don't worship any gods. You believe in them, you don't worship them, but would you follow their commands if they, like,
No, because, like, what you brought up exactly. Because, like, what kind of God asks us to sacrifice themselves? Like, I don't think I would follow that, because I'm basing my logic of the higher order. So I'm looking towards the higher order and following that God. So, like, the creator of the universe, I'm following, because, like, people don't seem to understand that logic presupposes order. And so if I am grounded, if I'm being logical, I'm appealing to that higher order, and so I wouldn't appeal to the order of the demigod.
okay, that makes sense. Okay. Now, so this I
It's
don't mean,
complicated, because it's like
yeah.
politics. It gets complicated and it gets muddy, because, like, not only is it like a local government. Now you have your federal government, and then something beyond.
Okay, now suppose there's, like, okay, the god that's, like, over you, like, basically in charge of you, and maybe you weren't aware of which god it was. And if that god appeared to you and said, "All right, Bubble, look, you're in my domain. I want you to do this. And if you don't do it, there's going to be consequences." Would you do it?
Well, here's the thing: might makes right, and I have no might in this situation. So, like, I think I would say, like Jesus said, like, the only way you're gonna save yourself if you can destroy all evil. Until that time comes, you need me. So, unless I can kill a god, there's nothing I can do about it.
So then would you do whatever that god told you to do?
Well, if it requires saving my skin, I probably would do it,
Okay.
because yeah, because at the end of the day, it's gonna be might makes right, and whoever's the mightiest is gonna win.
Now, do you see in the world, like, are there any places in the world where you would say, okay, yeah, I definitely see that such and such God is doing this thing in the world?
Uh, well, here's the thing: I do follow the Greek. I'm not sure if you're aware of the Greek mythos, in the Greek mythos, I think it was the Greek or Roman, one of those. In the Greek mythos, the god of war defeats Zeus, and then he declares that no god will ever interact with the human world again, and so gods aren't allowed to come in and did what Zeus did, have babies. He was a womanizer, so he's no longer allowed to do that because of what the god of war has done. And I'm not talking about Kratos, for those who are wondering, but the actual, I think Eris.
Okay.
I forgot the, yeah. So that's the Greek mythos. Like the god of war wins over Zeus, and then he comments that no god shall interact with the human world ever again.
So you believe that like that's still in place, like no god is interacting with the human world?
Yeah, basically.
But then what about like, let's say there's like Hindus that are like, worshiping Ganesh, and they say, well, Ganesh has interacted with us. We did this offering to Ganesh, and then Ganesh answered our prayer. Like, would you say, no, Ganesh actually didn't answer your prayer because the god of
No,
war said no more interaction with humans?
well, when we mean like interaction, I think that like they're not like a lot of show up again. So I think they can still like provide miracles and stuff like that. But like big influences, like for example, during the time of the gods, they would change the outcome of wars. So they were big stakes in the game. So they could have major influence. But it seems now they're just like individual case by case kind of thing. It's no longer like they're here like in the Egyptian times, like they were literally there, the telling them how to live and actually ruling over them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's now like they're from like operating from like behind reality in a way. If that makes
Okay.
sense.
So they can still influence reality, but they can't just like walk around on Earth.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
for the time being, until apocalypse, I guess we all still believe in apocalypse or the time of
Mm.
judgment. It's a
Now,
pretty
what do you think of Jesus saying, all authority on heaven and earth has been given to me?
all authority. Wait, wasn't because supposedly wasn't it that the because I see some Christians say that Satan has authority over the world
Mm.
when they fell. First, allegedly, God gave authority to Adam and Eve or the world, and when they fell, that authority now shifted to Satan. So, when does it shift to Jesus?
Well, I think, he said like after his resurrection, that's when he said, like after his death and resurrection, then he says, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me.
Hmm. I certainly do think he has authority because, like, if if he wasn't able to solve possessions, he wouldn't have any authority. So he clearly has authority. And I think one interesting authority is that demons aren't allowed to lie, but they are allowed to deceive people. So
Hmm.
I think that's very interesting because what you will see with a lot of these atheists, they won't lie, but they will deceive.
Hmm. What do you mean by that?
For
Because I've
example,
heard a lot of people lie. And
well,
I think demons lie too. So what do you mean? Like, why
I
do you
think
think they can't lie?
because of Jesus' authority over them. So by Jesus' authority, they are not allowed to lie, but they are allowed to deceive. So no. If for example, I think Krauss, I think, or Krauss was asked like, why is there no God? And the atheist would like, if you ask an atheist why is there no God, he'll say, well, he's still like maybe there could be a God, but he'll never lie and say there is no God. So why is that? Why can't you just be a honest, truth saying atheist saying there is no God? They'll just kind of back away from that. So when you
I've
start
heard
asking,
lots of atheists say there is no God.
there are some, but like the majority, like the very public atheists, like Krauss, Aaron Ra, they won't say there is no God. They'll say, I just don't believe in a God, or there could be a God, but there's no evidence for a God. But they won't make a truthful statement, a statement of truth.
But are you saying they cannot do that because they can't
Well,
lie?
well, I think, well, it's obvious. Did you know Aaron Ross is a Satanist? So he
Yes.
is in contact. Yeah, so he is in contact with demonic spirits. So because some of his knowledge, it certainly isn't coming from him, I believe. So I think somebody gave him that knowledge, but in order to use that knowledge, he must be possessed at the time. So he might be like possessed by the spirit of some entity that isn't allowed to lie, a demon. And so while he's being possessed by it, he can't lie. But as soon as the spirit leaves, he's able to lie again.
Okay. I don't know. I mean, I find this perspective a little bit.
Do you believe in demons?
Yeah.
Is it possible like some of these quote unquote atheists do interact with demons? And not just in like, oh, we're just playing around with a Ouija board. No, like they had full apparitions come to them. I'm not sure if you had this recently you had a Satanist, right?
Yes.
And he said he came in contact with actual demon.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, these things are real, but
yeah, I know that's not the part I'm having trouble with. The part I'm having trouble with is they can't lie thing.
Well, I forget where it's somewhere in the Bible. I think Jesus has authority over them and says you cannot lie, but they can deceive.
No, I don't think Jesus said that anywhere. So I think this is just coming from like a mistaken quote.
Or misinterpretation. Well, I guess I'll have to look it up. But but they all keep, because I keep seeing this same pattern of them like being deceptive but not lying.
Okay.
And so what I try to do with my questions is like I try to get them to lie. It's a question in which they can no longer use a deceptive language to get around it, and they have to make a truthful statement, or just, and if they try to dodge it, I just point it out. For example, I'll ask you a very simple question, like, does God exist? An atheist will ask you, does God exist? And what would you say?
Yes.
See, you fell for the trap, because exists, by the definition, is what a thing does, not what a thing is. So what you're saying is God is a thing, and so God is no longer a mind by this definition. So you're saying God somewhere within the universe is a thing that exists. So you have fallen for the trap. So you got to be not only you arguing against their arguments, you have to be aware of the linguistics they are using in their arguments. For example, I ask you another one: is God rational?
Well, why don't you tell me what you think the answer is?
Well, what would you say if an atheist came to you and asked you, is God rational?
Yes.
You fell for the trap again, because rationality presupposes order in the same way logic presupposes order. So you are saying that God is under an order which he must appeal to be logical, to be rational. Do you get it?
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So they use these tactics, and the Christian doesn't really understand what's happening, because they're not thinking about the linguistic sides, and this is just them being deceptive. They're not lying, but they are being deceptive.
Okay, now why is this important to you? Because it seems like, you want people to be aware of gods. So like, why is it important to you to counter what atheists are saying?
Because I think Christianity has failed. I think it's ended up in this stalemate, and it's like a trench they can't get out. And they created this trench, and and I think it's more importantly because of this lie of microevolution that has really just stumped everybody, and there's really nowhere to go. And I think that just gives the atheists an advantage. So what I do with my polytheism is get rid of this microevolution, and now I engage them, and I'm pushing them back.
Now, but why is it important to be a theist rather than an atheist? Why is that important?
Why is it important? Well, because it's well, you can deny that you know there's a God, but that's simply denying. And simply denying is just vile and cynical. So if you want to be a cynical atheist, go ahead, but you cannot simply start denying and get people to follow along with it.
So what do you think the consequences are for people? Like, what do you think is, like, how does that impact their life in bad ways? Like, if they do go that cynical route?
Well, how they impact their lives doesn't really matter to me. If you want to be cynical, abuse drugs, and hurt yourself, that's fine. But it starts becoming a problem when it starts becoming the law. So, for example, in Christianity, their whole basis and structure to them is like they have no rules. Christianity doesn't have rules like in Islam. They have the whole structure is let the ruling elite have power over them and tell them their laws. For example, when did it become? It should be the new law that it's okay for like gay marriage, evolution. This needs to be in the law books. But like, since when did we vote for this? No Christian would ever vote for this, and yet they're pushing it on you guys, pushing it on everybody, and so you're pretty much just gonna get faded out, and it's there's gonna be no Christianity left.
Well, okay, but why would that matter?
Well,
I mean, look,
no, it's a good question.
I'm a believer in God. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just saying, like, I'm trying to figure out why this is important for you. Like, how do you think it's important? How is the existence of God's important?
Well, the reason I care is because, like, I like life. So, like, if I want life to keep going on, you have to stick with the natural order of things. So how do you keep that going? It's clear that these things that like gay marriage, it's just subversive to lower down, to get rid of populations. Let's be honest. The reason evolution is defined as, the mechanisms of evolution are mutations in time. It's because that's all the atheists need to get rid of mankind. Time and mutations. Mutations in the genome or cumulative time is going to wipe them out. So that's all they need. So
okay.
So I'm trying to fight against this disorder.
So your problem with gay marriage is that it, like, less people will be born?
No. Well, it's like because it's an active disorder. So gay marriage is an active disorder. Evolution is an active disorder because it's against creationism. It's against, actually conserving what is created. Because it's like turning the cross upside down. It's like a man thinking he's a woman. In the same way that's like in the same way turning the cross upside down is blasphemous. It's an upfront against God, insulting. So is this. So if you can't kill God, what's the next best thing? Kill his creation. And that's gonna hurt God.
Okay. So I really don't know where to go with this conversation now. Okay. So what is an example? What do you think is the right order of things then? Like what would be, what does life look like if it's ordered according to God or gods?
But it looks like Islam. And I think a lot of Christians hate Islam, but that's how it looks like. People who worship, people who know their roles. You have a man and wife. There's no question who's a man, who's a man, what's a woman, what's a woman. They're devoted. They know, they're aware of things that are harmful culturally, and they actively in their rules stop that. It might look cruel, it might look bigoted, but they enforce it, and that's how it looks like.
Okay. So then why aren't
Not,
you following the way of Islam?
I do. Silently, I do. I mean, not that I think you should be, women have to be covered up like entirely, but I do think, I'm not confused of who's a woman, who's a man, and like, and I'm not confused. Like, yes, you do need a father and a family, and no, you can't just have people getting married, getting a divorce, and getting married again. That's just not going to work out. That's just going to lead, to it's going to lead to destructive families, and you're not going to have any families at the end of the day. You're just going to have disorder.
Okay. So, but you mentioned, that in Islam they're following the order, like, and one of the ways that they're following the order is that they are devoted to God. But
Yeah,
you
because
aren't devoted to God. So are you going against the order?
well, no, I would say I am devoted to God. That's what I do when I go against these atheists. That's my devotion. That's my
Okay.
devotion to upkeep in the order. So I wouldn't say I'm evil because I'm against evil. I'm against disorder. I wish to preserve and actually conserve it. And
Okay.
like so those in the Islamic world seek to do the same, while those in the Western world don't seem to want to do that. They seem to want to like confuse people, starting with a young, this you know tell them what's a female, what's a male, an example. And so they seek to confuse people, and they seek to spread this to the whole country. And that's just not sustainable.
Okay. Now what are your goals like overall in life?
Well, I think I just want to like get rid of these atheists, and that's really it. I just want to, I don't want to be doing debates my whole life like Duff Dawkins, because
Mhm.
he's just become a sourpuss,
Mhm.
and I don't want to become that. But I do want people to understand and actually know the truth. And so, like, once they know the truth and become accepting of the truth, there won't be anything for us to fight about. We understand what's going on, and if you're truly mature, you're going to come to the side of God and try to keep that natural order, keep the things going, and you're not going to have these evil men taking power. So, which happens a lot with Christianity on the Western side, because you don't see this much power gain in Islamic worlds.
Okay. Now, what do you think like human destiny is? Like, do you believe in an afterlife?
Yeah.
What
So
is your belief
yes.
about that?
So yeah, I guess yeah, I would say like this world is in a way getting you ready for the afterlife, because you got to experience it. Like, what's the best way for you to learn? Yeah, experience. So you do have to go through a little bit of suffering at least to try and understand the mind of God. So like Christians, I mean, so atheists would ask, well, why this world and why not another? Well, just look at the rules he created and why those rules are in place. And so those rules make relevant what the end goal is that the God is trying to teach you. So why free will? Well, first off, without free will, you wouldn't have a soul. But because you're now making choices, and your choices have consequences, and so you're not just living in a world of absolute freedom where you can just do whatever you want, and you can hurt people, and you're not gonna suffer anything from it. So you're not living in a vacuum.
Okay. So, which God is going to control the afterlife, or are there going to be many gods in control of the afterlife?
Well, I do believe in heaven, and I do believe in hell, but I also do believe in Valhalla.
Okay.
So if you want a warriors afterlife, there's Valhalla.
Okay. So, do you think that there's any other places besides Valhalla and heaven and hell?
Yeah, I do believe in purgatory.
Mm-hmm.
I also believe, because there was an interesting event. There was a ghost hunter, and
Mm-hmm.
the ghost hunter asked one of these ghosts, like, is there a heaven? And it responded, it's a heaven. So they made a little slice of heaven for themselves on earth. It wasn't the heaven, but it was a heaven.
Mm-hmm.
So you do have wandering spirits who just stay on earth and just kind of settle there, rather than move on to, like, I don't know, heaven or hell.
Do you think, because, Jesus said things like, you know, um, no one comes to the Father except through me. Do you think of the Father that he's talking about? Is that the God overall, the creator?
Possibly, yeah. Because, like, I don't believe in the Trinity,
Okay.
so I think we would disagree on the legitimacy of that.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think he is referring to, like, a higher God.
Mm-hmm. And then what about Jesus, like, saying, I am the way, the truth, and the life? What do you think he meant by that?
Didn't he say the light? Or was it the life?
Life.
Ah, well, I would say he is a way, a truth, and a life. So I wouldn't say he's the God. I would say he is a God.
Okay. And then, so who's in control of heaven and hell?
Uh, was that, I think, Hades? Is that the Greek
Like the
god of
god of
hell?
the underworld? Mhm.
Yeah. So I would say
Okay.
Hades.
So how do you conceive of hell, since you believe in hell? Do you see hell as eternal conscious torment?
Uh, yeah. Well, there are different versions of hell. For, like, I think in, like, Christianity, there's like 9 levels of hell, but, like, in something like Hinduism, there's like over 30 or like 100. So there's, like, not even way more hell than regular Christianity.
Well, there may be some conceptions of Christianity where there's levels of hell, but I mean, I don't even believe in hell as eternal conscious torment. So there's Christians like me who don't, we believe that when Jesus is referring to Gehenna, which is the, word that's translated as hell, that he's actually just referring to judgment and destruction.
Oh yeah, you guys don't believe it's an actual place?
Right.
No, yeah, yeah. I would say, like, it's an actual place where, like, demonic entities dwell, because, like, demons don't want to just destroy humans. They want to take them to their realm and torture them endlessly, because it's still God's creation, and then they want to hurt God. They can't kill God, so they have to do the next best thing, destroy his creation.
Mm-hmm. Do you think there's any God who loves you?
I don't think love. I think love is conditional. I don't think it's eternal. So, like, even if you go to heaven, for example, if we all get beamed up to heaven, eventually things are gonna go sour, and then it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen all over again. I mean, where did the angels revolt if not in heaven? And they thought they could take on God. Why would they think that? Unless they actually could.
Mm-hmm.
So like heaven is just another battlefield.
Do you believe what the Bible says when it talks about like God's kingdom, and it says that he's going to wipe every tear from our eyes and the old order of things will be passed away and there won't be any more crying or mourning or pain?
I do believe that, but you got to take in consideration what kind of order would need to be established for you to actually have that. So if you don't want any more suffering, that's going to require you surrendering your free will. So it's no longer order; it's going to be control. And I don't think I want that. I mean, I'm not against order, but I don't want control.
Okay. You guys, if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat now. I got Assembly of God's question that I will put up in a minute. But so what is your understanding of Christianity's solution, the problem that you just mentioned?
The problem of evil?
No, the problem of like, how do we get heaven to be a good place where, maybe it's not a place like you said, it would have to be a place of control, but in order for it to be good, right? But to stay good. But what is your idea? Like, what do you think Christianity teaches about that?
Well, it's not too clear. I think heaven seems to be very, like nebulous and vague at this point. It's like this. Sometimes it sounds like a gated community. Sometimes it sounds like you're becoming one with God into like some sort of collective consciousness. Sometimes it sounds like you have your own section in this kingdom. Sometimes it sounds like you're a citizen in this kingdom. So it's all over the place for me, and I can't pinpoint it.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of the descriptions that you gave are, those, are presented in the Bible. But, the thing that we know essentially about God's kingdom is that it is going to be a place where humanity will no longer be corrupt. That's what Jesus Christ did for us, is that, he's providing for the healing and restoration of humanity.
Well,
so
there's only
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's only two ways to achieve that. Everybody has power or nobody has power. Because power will corrupt. And it shows by by the looks of like those demigods, it seems those gods were corrupted. And they just sought more power. I mean, there's a reason these people were sacrificed. It just wasn't for, giggles and funny lulls from the gods. It's because they were trying to get something out of the humans.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in this order of things, yes, power does corrupt people. And, but the idea is that humanity could, through Jesus Christ, be rid of that temptation to corrupt, for power to corrupt, right? That we could actually be restored to being beings that are reflecting God's love.
Yeah, I think I should be more specific. It's not the power. It's not the power itself corrupts, but is the gap between the power. So like, the only reason the elite are the elite is because of the power gap, not because they have power. You need power to get stuff done. Everybody needs power, but it is the gap between these individuals that allows the one who has more power to manipulate the one that has less power. So but like if so, I think if you want to still have free will and maintain like a non-corrupt uh, place in heaven, there's gonna have to be like not so much of a power gap between there, like a husband and a wife. They both have power, but the husband still has a little bit more power.
Hmm. Okay. I'm going to put up a couple questions from people. Okay. So, okay, this is from Aki Ingvarson. Do you think crocoduck is a good argument against evolution? I don't know what that is. So, do you know what?
I don't know any.
No.
I don't know. I don't know what it is either.
Okay.
I've heard of it.
Assembly of God. Why are Ouija boards marketed by toy companies? Is that a big conspiracy?
I believe they have taken some of these down because they do get complaints about the Ouija boards. So
Well,
like
you can still buy them. So, but
you can still buy them, but like not every store stocks them because they do get complaints.
okay. But so, so you think Ouija boards are a bad thing?
Well, Ouija board is just a cardboard and a piece of plastic.
Okay.
But what gives us this power? It becomes a talisman. So you basically you turn it into a talisman, which it becomes a signal for these other entities to, hey, come here, let's communicate. But it is just plastic and plastic, and you can turn anything into a talisman. For example, Christians sometimes use a cross, and that's their version of a talisman to sort of communicate with God or Jesus.
Well, I have a cross around my neck, but I'm not using it to communicate with God.
Well, you use it as a something to call upon God. It gives you more of a connection with God. It's something for you to hold on and actually concentrate your thoughts on Jesus. For example, it lets you concentrate your prayers in the same way a Ouija board lets them kind of concentrate that communication. I don't know how exactly how the supernatural works, but this is like a general gist of it.
Now, so do you think the beings that people are contacting with Ouija boards are gods or demons? And do you think the gods are like want us to communicate with demons?
They usually tend to be more ghosts and demons.
Okay.
So the reason it tends to be demons most of the time is because once they answer a question for you, now they feel entitled, like you owe them something, and that something is your body. And so they feel entitled to possess you or haunt you because they answer a couple questions.
How do you think the gods feel about that?
Well, I'm pretty sure they don't like it, but they don't really seem to be interrupting it because it's still your choice. Hey, you want to play with fire? God isn't going to come down, and if you decide to jump in a pool of lava, he's not going to like it, but he still decided to do that.
Okay, I don't know if I think this is not a serious question, but Titan Uranus would like to know, have you ever done drugs? What drugs? Do you still do drugs?
Titan, you need to stop doing drugs. No, I never done drugs. I don't even drink alcohol. The only thing I drink is sweet tea, and it's killing my kidneys.
Okay. And Tape Deck would like to know if you would debate mango tea.
Sure. On what topic?
Yeah, do you know who mango tea is? I don't.
I never heard of him. I'm sure I hear from him later.
Okay, here's a question from Jamie Russell. What is your main reason for that you reject the Christian narrative where he does, but still has so much agreement? What is his... Okay.
Well, here's the thing. I reject the Bible. That doesn't mean I reject Jesus. clearly Jesus did exist and he was crucified. That's blatant fact. But I don't follow. I don't think the Bible is true, because I do believe each human race was created individually, and that doesn't line up with the biblical tale. So from that, I'm allowed to, I'm justified to believe these deities that people claim created them. I'm gonna accept that as truth.
Okay, so are you saying you believe that each person is created individually?
No, each race.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Okay. Um, and Finhammer wants to know what parts of the Bible.
I think one of them would be we all came from Adam and Eve. I don't think like there were dinosaurs in the ark. I think that's clearly just talking about farm animals, because there would be no reason to include the phrasing the clean animals and the dirty animals. So it's clearly not talking about all the animals. So it's only talking about a specific group of animals. And I think in some other texts, it does describe the clean animals and the non-clean animals, and it's talking about farm animals.
Okay, cool. All right, guys. So thank you so much for being here, everyone. Do you have anything more you want to talk about? Did I fail to cover something that you wanted to talk about?
No, I think we covered a lot, all the main points. I don't think we missed anything. I mean, do you have anything you want to ask?
Well, I mean, I think I covered it. It was really fun talking to you. Actually, you have quite a unique perspective. I've never heard this before. Really, I've never met anyone that believes similarly to what you've described. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah. I think I'm the only polytheist on like the whole internet, so I consider myself like the CEO of polytheism.
Okay, wait. There is a final question that just came in. Hold on. Assembly of God says, do you think life was seeded on this planet by an alien?
No, but I do think there is aliens, and I do think we have captured some of them and killed some of them.
Okay. And then Tape Deck wants to know, what are your key points of agreement or disagreement?
I think we agree there was a Jesus, there is a heaven, there is a God in heaven. I think we disagree that we disagree on microevolution, and I'm not sure if you think there's ghosts. Do you think there's ghosts?
I do.
Okay,
but I mean, it really depends what we mean by ghosts. Do I think that, spirits of people have sometimes appeared to people? Is that what you're defining as a ghost?
I guess, yeah.
Yeah, I think that has happened. Yeah. So I do think sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, because I get in fight with Christians who don't believe that. Like, oh my god.
Yeah. Okay, so our main our main points of disagreement is microevolution. Although I said I'm trying not to use those terms micro and macro, but I do believe that organisms change via, like genetic variation and mutation and that kind of thing.
Well, yeah. Well, you kind of have to, because without it, Christianity, the biblical narrative, pretty much gets tossed with it. So you're kind of cornered by it. You do have to accept that.
How so? You mean because of the amount of animals that were on the ark, or
if there's no microevolution, this applies to human races, and so you don't have a way to explain that. What you kind of do if you accept that there is two, because I'm not sure if you know if there's a controversy in Genesis that there is two creation accounts.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So if you accept that second account as a literal second account, then you don't have a problem. But if you only accept one account of Genesis, then you do have the microevolution problem.
Okay. So Hillary's emails wants to. The other questions are coming in. I was trying to end the stream, but now there's like more questions. Did you name your god yet? It's
Yes,
chaos.
Yeah, it is chaos.
Okay. And then Theophilus wants to know, if gods exist, what would it or they want?
To me, I think some gods want power and some gods want us to transcend. And it really depends on the gods because, for example, the god of war wants war.
Interesting. Okay. Titan Uranus says, you missed my follow-up question. I purposely ignored some questions that were just trolling, guys. So yeah, no offense to anyone, but if your question wasn't very serious, then I ignored it. So
Titan Uranus, my biggest fan.
Yeah, do you have some sort of rivalry going on with Titan Uranus?
Oh no, it's because I caught him. He was trying to be sneaky. So I did this interview with like this channel that doesn't have any subscribers. Like it was only me and that guy. And then Titan Uranus, like, hey Titan Uranus. So you came out to look at my argument because this is when I was barely starting, and it was a secret argument back then. And they're like, oh, you're trying to look at my argument. And he was pretending he wasn't trying to look at my argument. Like, and he's saying, I've been sub to this channel for a long, long time. And he just happened to stumble and come here to this channel. And then I asked him, okay, what other content does this channel have that you like? Because this channel didn't have any other content. It was only me. So he clearly came to see me. So that's why I call him my number one fan. He's trying to be slippery, little rascal.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, Theophilus says, we're trolling the troll. So are you known as a troll?
Only by people who are triggered by the argument, because the argument, it is a defeater for evolution, unless they want to say they're inferring the transitionals, which is fine, but now they're saying they have no actual evidence for evolution, and it's just a faith-based argument. It makes them mad. I have many atheists come to me, attack me after in the after shows, after my debates, and they're just so mad. I had this debate with a kind of famous atheist called Grayson, and like I got him to admit there was no transitional, but one of his fans came to me like, no way, it didn't happen. He was in copium. He was mad. He couldn't accept that it happened. That there was no evidence. And then I showed him like he really did admit that I won the debate. I show him in video, 4K video, like here it is. He is admitting I won that, but he couldn't accept it because he knows what comes after that.
What do you mean? What comes after that?
Well, if there's no transitionals, there is no evolution. He couldn't accept that. He was just mad about it.
Okay, cool. Well, this has been fun. And I do think we have more in common than we do with some of the people watching, right? So I appreciate you sharing your perspective. And yeah, it was fun. So thanks for being here. And do you have anything upcoming that you want to tell people about?
I really don't do that many shows. I kind of stick to myself. I don't really do videos on evolution or my religion or anything like that. But I think I am going to do another show with Snake Was Right this coming Friday. If people want to tune into that, that's about it.
Okay. Snake Was Right. Is that the name of the channel?
Yeah, that's the name of his channel. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, everybody. Well, thanks for being here and have a great night.